Today, I'm joined by M.T Christen to talk about her debut novel, My Dear Flinchy. She is a fantasy author who writes rough characters in rougher worlds. She is also the co-founder of Inkcraft Publishing, between herself and co-founder Adam J. Sherman, where they bring life to profound stories with moving messages lost to the algorithm, in which they feel capture the risk-filled and whimsical take on our greater human experience. Thanks for joining me today, Mindy. I'm super excited to get to learn more about My Dear Flinchy and just learn about you as a person and an author.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I love what you're doing. I love all the conversation topics that are coming up. So.
Oh, thank you. So you've been here, which I think we're the 8th episode, so I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah, I actually have to catch up on your last released episode, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I'm a podcast girl, so if anybody has any suggestions, I'm always listening. So let's talk about your book. Can you give us a brief synopsis of My Dear Flinchy, your debut?
Yeah, I totally can. I have been pitching this synopsis 40 times over at my events. I've got it down to a science. My poor vendor neighbors, they had to hear me say it so many times. Eventually by the end, one of them came over and he's like, "You don't have to pitch this to me, but I'm gonna buy 2 of your books." And I was like, "Oh, great."
I love that.
Well, My Dear Flinchy it's like a high adventure fantasy western. It's genre mixing a little bit. It's just different. I'm kind of pushing people's comfort zones with the western niche in particular. But basically, a degenerative woman named Harley decided that after all of the trauma catching up to her from living in the West, she decides that she needs to go east. She needs to get away. She needs to start over. She just can't bear another moment being so beaten down. But she is a degenerate, so she has no money. She has no prospects. She can't hold down a job. So what do you do when you don't have money? You go gamble. So she goes to a saloon, and instead of winning cash, she ends up winning a quest to take a stinky magical white cow south across a dangerous red rock desert. And for her, it's do or die. So she's like, I guess I gotta do this. And luckily for her, right as she gets started at this journey, she runs into this kid from the east, this naive young little guy who has the desert powers that she needs to navigate the desert safely. Basically, he's got like these chaos powers. And so even though he asked for her help, she's just kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. But in her head, she's like, I'm going to use him and then I'm going to lose him.
Gotta do what you gotta do in the Wild West.
Yeah, exactly. She's not a good person, to say the least. Of course, as all stories go, there has to be growth. So you can expect colossal scorpions, shootouts with bald cattle wranglers, hairy negotiations, missionaries that are trying to destroy the setting that she loves, all kinds of stuff that she kind of trauma bonds throughout, and eventually she's left with a really, really important decision. That decision entails either continuing to get away from the trauma that has caused her so much pain and suffering, or to sacrifice that and to help Cade with his issue.
I love that, and I love the genre mixing. There's so much intrigue in that synopsis. Like, I see how that would hook anybody. There's so much intrigue, and I feel like we are. I kind of write as genre mixing. I feel like that's what I'm drawn to. So the Wild West, it doesn't push my boundaries. I'm into it. And speaking of that, I've seen someone, because I've read through the reviews, I saw someone refer to it as belonging to the Weird West genre. So is that how you would describe the things that you write in general? Or if not, how would you describe the things that you write?
That is a really great question. I actually wouldn't. So Weird West is a really great way to describe this particular novel. And this novel ended up being kind of a zany, out of left field sort of book for me, that I ended up getting really attached to. Weird West just because my book is absurd, it's comedic, spaghetti western vibes, but mixed with like Utah landscape and all kinds of fun genre, fantasy genre mixing like that. But generally, what I actually write is a second world fantasy that's influenced by historical events.
That totally
So
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, in a way, Harley's story is like that. West Pillar is not Earth. She lives in a fantasy world called the Pillars, and she's in the West Pillar specifically. But it is all influenced by 1830s rural American West technology, setting, all of that, and it's a love letter to Utah. So it's got like Earth like connections, but I love to just decide that this is a different world so that I can change the rules if I want it, as long as they're consistent. And so to be a little bit more specific with what I normally write, a really good example is I have this project like way on the back burner. It's a duology, but it's supposed to be kind of like this high fantasy setting. It started out that way. It started out as just this like elves and magic and apocalypse and swords, and I eventually revamped it to actually go along with 1630s musketeer vibes. And I'm like, okay, I kind of want like old-timey France mixed in. Um, and so I'm also doing it with my next project.
That there are so many people who just love historical. I think I've read two historical, like, influenced books. Um, but it's a great way to, like, learn, too. So I read this book recently it was called A City of Lights and Skulls. And it was about, like, when electricity got introduced into Chicago. And I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so I
That
love
would
that you can implement that into your fantasy.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I can already see so many great ways to create a story around just that real historical event that's happening. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets inspired by different things. For me, I get inspired by, like, film, but I can see how someone like you are a history buff or maybe something like that, and you're like, well, what if, this happened?
Yeah,
So that's cool.
yeah. I see a lot of story potential in what has actually been written in history, and then I just really like to add the fantasy aesthetic to it.
hmm So we've talked a little bit about the synopsis of My Dear Flinchy. I don't remember if you mentioned what inspired it specifically. Was there any particular thing that you can pinpoint?
Yeah, this is a really fun story, actually. So yes, I love to hike. I like to be in the Red Rocks, and I like to wonder how the world could be infused with magic because my mind's always whimsy ridden. But in particular, this story came from a dinky little college assignment for a creative writing class. So I took playwriting, like beginner's playwriting. I'm nowhere close to being a playwright, so I wanted to give it a little shot. I ended up writing a 10-minute play called Two for Flinching because I love Atlantis, and you know, it was a cool play on words. And it actually was the start of this character named Harley, who I ended up drawing on my iPad. I'm a digital artist as well. So she kind of came out of my head in a drawing. She became a character, and I decided this would be a great character to put into this random assignment that I needed to get done. The assignment ended up being just very centrally focused on this joke that multiple animals were named the same thing because she had this complex that she couldn't remember names. You know, she just was like, "You're all flinchy to me."
Oh.
And then it also focused on this, like, her being greedy and that being a central conflict between her and another character, who was just tagging along with her and needed her help trying to get somewhere. And then at the center of it all was an arch that they were going to portal through. But in my head, the play setting was all, you know, it was practical. I needed to make it realistic that, like, a university setting could create it, basically. So it was a play, and I put it aside. Like, I didn't really return to it for a long time, but while I was doing all my other college work and writing with my workshop group and everything, I had this inkling to just write something a little different. I needed like it's like smelling coffee grinds, like you needed a new flavor to kind of play with for a second. And I thought back to that play that I did, and I just thought, "Oh my gosh, I created this whole fantasy world. Like so many different things within the desert setting had all these magical rules that I never got to even touch in this play because it was only 10 minutes." And I thought there's so much potential for this to be a novel, but not only in setting but in story too, because there was so much unresolved with Harley. Like she was still screaming in my head, being her loud, obnoxious self. She had a story to tell, and I needed to create something. So when I created this book, I sat down and I said, okay, here's a list of all my wants for this book I'm going to write. At the top was this play. I wanted the play to be like the main part of it. But then I thought, okay, I want some eco-critical ideas in there because I'm obsessed with eco-criticism from college. I'm a little nerdy like that. But I wanted the night sky to feature in it. I wanted the desert setting and like the problems that can be inherent with the desert setting, or the way people can ruin the beauty for you. But I also wanted monsters, and I wanted oh, I wanted my dog to be in it somehow, and I found a great way to immortalize my dog. But yeah, so I just wanted all those things, and I ended up finding a story that was just standalone novel length, and I said, okay, that's how I want to debut. I want a standalone novel. This is going to be so fun, and it ended up being so fun and funny. I couldn't stop writing it, and it became a successful project because I was just so propelled with the absurdity of it. It was just so fun and lighthearted that I didn't have to take myself too seriously, and now it's starting to sell itself in some inconceivable way. It's very cool.
Yeah, like I write short stories, and so there are sometimes where I'm like, there's something bigger here but for now, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
let it sit here. And it sounds like with the playwright, like it continued to exist. These voices, these characters were still always there. So I love to hear what inspired people.
Yeah, I would say short stories are an incredible pathway into maybe making those like shorter novels or just novels that could be standalone.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about. So you were in college, and I saw again on your author bio, you abandoned a science degree for creative writing, or how did that work?
Oh, my college life is actually a little bit of a roller coaster. I went into college right after graduating. I did the normal thing where you graduate and you're like, I'm off to college. And I thought in high school I was going to be a doctor, because everybody told me that being a writer was that people really positioned it to be a very difficult thing and a very far away thing.
Anything to
Even
do with the
though,
arts, I feel like people have that perception. Yeah.
yeah, and they really do try to kind of trick your younger minds into thinking, Go to STEM, go to STEM. You're going to be more successful that way." And I think a lot of us initially abandon it and find the arts within ourselves because we're trying to be duty forward with that. But so I went to college under the idea that I would either be a doctor, so I was definitely going to pre-med, but also I started with a biochemistry degree because I liked biology, but I thought chemistry was where the money was. Anyways, I failed math and I failed chemistry, and I just said, oh, screw it. So I threw in the towel. I decided to buy a home, get dogs, go on a 2-month backpacking trip with my boyfriend. I chose life instead of school. But then I ended up dumping him and getting a lot of money from selling the house. And that moment, I was like, okay, I can at least finish my associate's degree so that I have a degree of some kind. And then as soon as that was done, I realized, no, I know what I want. I want a bachelor's in creative writing. I don't even care if that makes me money. I'm already, in a day job that is supporting me. What's the harm? So I got my creative writing degree. And it was one of the funnest experiences ever for me.
I
I
love
had
that.
straight A's. Nothing was hard. It was all just, it wasn't hard in the sense that I liked what I was doing. So it wasn't hard for me.
it was a totally different experience from your previous because it wasn't meant for you, and this is what you were meant to do. So I love that.
Exactly.
I feel like our generation, yeah, like just going back to like let's do STEM, go where the money's at. We were so discouraged from anything creatively, but I'm so glad that you knew that about yourself and you trusted yourself and you did what you wanted to do.
Well, it definitely helps to see younger people these days just making money off of being social media influencers. And I'm like, oh, if that's a reality, then I should be more than welcome to write and do art for my lifetime. If
Yeah,
people can get paid to make stupid videos online, like, come on.
exactly.
So, gives me a little bit more wind in my sails, I guess.
So let's talk a little bit about you're not just a published author, but you also are a co-founder of Inkcraft Publishing with your friend and co-founder Adam Sherman. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Inkcraft and what your mission is with that?
Yeah. So Adam and we met in college during our creative writing degree specifically. And we, after college, created a workshop group that we unintentionally named Inkcraft. We all just kind of like voted on that name. We thought, oh, that's so cute. Our workshop group is named Inkcraft. It's fun. But we as a group were really good at building each other up and making, I don't know, we all were like, we all want to be published. We all want to get to that point. But some of us, as we were doing our research, some of us were like, well, I want to be traditionally published. But a few of us were like, but we could indie publish if we really tried hard. Like, we could do that faster, and we don't have to rely on other people liking our work. But we came from a creative writing degree. We were surrounded by really good writing in college. Our workshop group is full of really good writing, but really unique writing, and writing that I don't think a lot of agents, because they're trying to fit market trends, and not just agents, but publishers as well, because the publishers are what are setting those trends. They are looking for things that are just so old, like tired to us, and things that there's just not a lot of specialness coming from some of the more curated trends that people are trying to write to. And you hear the advice like, don't write to trends. Well, that's what Adam and I want to encourage. We really don't want you to write to trends. We want to see special things being written, things that are just as zany as My Dear Flinchy, or just as philosophical as his book that's going to be coming out later this year. We just want something that's more full of quality and more full of heart than something that's written to make a lot of money. We're tired of the algorithm ruling us, and so we want to illuminate potential, but in like the quality of storytelling, and bring it back to just being unique. So being so small and not having any money, we obviously can't make that like go very far yet, but we kind of want to be trendsetters, a play on that, because we don't really like trends, but we want to encourage kind of a new style of approaching publishing. And we do plan in our 5-year plan plus 5+ year plan, we do want to be a traditional publisher, but we aren't necessarily set up yet to be accepting submissions from people, and to be like, giving people advances and being like, we're gonna publish your book completely. We just don't have the following yet. We don't have the revenue, but we are gonna. In the first year, we're working on our stuff, mine and Adam's stuff. We want to become proficient and professional and experts in what we're doing, which is indie publishing specifically. And then in the next few years, we really want to focus on being like a consultation firm in particular, which is just, we want people to reach out, maybe pay like a small non-detrimental fee to be given advice, to be given direction, to be given a push, because indie publishing is not for everybody. You have to be a very specific personality type to make it work, and it can be very overwhelming. There are a lot of people who are disillusioned by it sometimes. And we want to offer a very reasonable way that isn't scammy. We don't want to be a hybrid publisher. So we're trying to find a way to become a publisher, to build that revenue so that we can become we can champion people, but we just aren't there yet. So we're trying to find our way there. That's why
Yeah.
you don't know us. We're brand new.
Yeah, I
But we're
love that
working.
you're positioning yourself in the beginning as the consulting, because it is true that a lot of people who are like, well, I'm going to self publish or indie publish, there is a little bit of disillusion there. And you almost have to do it in order to have your expectations curbed a little bit, and then you realize this is what I have to do to actually get my book moving. And so I think that'll be really helpful to a lot of people. And when you guys are ready to accept submissions and start teaming up with authors who are ready to publish indie, I think that's going to be amazing. And there was a word that I think you use is risk, and that is something that I have seen in the trad space, is because, like, safe choices, they work. And so I do really appreciate that in the indie space you're willing to do approach those more like risk filled, whimsical takes, because those are the exciting stories. Those are what I want to read. I want to read new stuff, things that entertains me, and that I can't necessarily predict.
Yeah, I would like to even maybe say that indie publishing is risk, and so it makes sense that if we're going to be an indie publisher, that we need to represent that risk and we need to take on that risk, because that's all of us are doing, is we're risking our time, our money, our own like hearts and souls in what we're doing to put it out in the world. So our goals is to save up enough money to buy a booth at Dragonsteel. If you've heard of Brandon Sanderson, he's got a yearly convention in Utah, that he actually is a champion of indie authors and people who are publishing on their own. He loves to build us up, so he has like an indie author alley there at Dragonsteel and stuff like that. So we're hoping for that.
I've never read any of his books, but I know who he is, and I know that he does give like really great writing advice, and he does seem like a really great champion for other writers and authors.
Yeah, he's a great community person here in Utah. He's
Yeah.
dedicated a lot of his life to us littles. So
Yeah. I know you'll manifest it. You'll make it happen.
I hope to catch his eye and maybe he'll help me out. I don't know. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
It'll happen. So, speaking of going back to My Dear Flinchy, the Wild West, which, I mean, it's not the Wild West we know, but let's just call it the Wild West. If you time traveled to the Wild West, what are three things from today's timeline that you would bring with you? Like three must haves?
That's a good question. My boyfriend even ventured that we're kind of still in the Wild West sometimes out here. It can feel that way sometimes, but no. I don't know why, but the first thing that was on my mind was just duct tape. I feel like
Duct tape fixes
I
everything, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's gonna be moments where I'm just surviving, and I know that duct tape is a survivor's tool. Like,
Yeah. They'll pay you
so
gold for
definitely,
that.
yeah, and they'd probably, I don't know when duct tape was. I think it was invented in like 1920s or maybe like during one of the World Wars. But yeah, it would be kind of a crazy invention to people of 1830. That would be funny. The second thing, I can't go without my dog. So I'd bring my dog with me. And not just because like, it's my dog, but she's actually my adventure buddy. She hikes everywhere with me. She's like a little mountain goat. So I would need her for that, but also for comfort and until I make friends out there with the weird people who don't
Yeah.
understand the alien futuristic person. Like, I need to have a buddy that I can talk to in the way that Harley talks to her cows and her horses. Anyways, the third thing, I feel like I have to really like make it modern or just capitalize on the modern influence that I'm coming from. But you know what? I think a water filter, just a really good water filter.
That is smart.
Yeah, nobody like thinks about all of the diseases, and the diseases terrify the crap out of me. Speaking of loving podcasts, the one This Podcast Will Kill You is
I've
like one
heard
of
of
my,
that.
I love it. If you're a oh, what's the word? Hypochondriac.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to listen to that podcast. But if you really like pathology and diseases, that's a good one. But it makes you kind of scared of old world. You couldn't send me back to the medieval times. I'll just say that.
Yeah, if you're like, no, go ahead and sacrifice me now. I'm not going through with that.
No, just the diseases alone, let alone the witch burning and,
Yeah, it makes me
God
think,
knows what
which
else.
was, it had to be total bullcrap, but do you remember? I think we're about the same age, maybe, but A Thousand Ways to Die,
Yeah.
which I think that was some bullcrap. None of that had to be real, but for some reason, like this podcast will kill you. It kind of makes me think of that, but like with more accuracy.
Okay, A Thousand Ways to Die. I have like this one specific scene just like traumatically stuck in my head that I don't think is like super appropriate to talk about, but that
Yeah, there were some
show,
crazy ones on there.
yeah, scarring. And
Absolutely.
definitely some of them are BS. They were definitely just writing it for fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, what should we expect to see from you coming up? Is there anything that you want to share with us? Any future books?
Yeah, it's already announced on my website just because I need a push to get it started. Well, I mean, it is started. Okay, it's a 5 book series. Because now that I've got my standalone done, I know that series also really help indie authors kind of like keep going and keep getting up there. So this one, like I said, I'm influenced by history. So this is actually a like a gas lamp fantasy. You can maybe imagine some steampunky elements to it, but imagine a world where in 1822 steam power was invented. So you had the steam locomotives, coal power, and all that stuff. Well, in my world, in their 1822, geothermal power was invented. And that's because straight from the earth, there's this thing called source or raw mana that gives the indigenous inhabitants of that continent the power of arcane magic. Um, so you've got like a body of people who can do magic, and then a body of people who cannot do magic. They are completely magicless, and it's like if you took a human and you dipped them in a vat of bleach, and they just come out completely just like white. That's what they're the primes, and they are the ones in charge because more of them is very oppressing versus a few of them, even with magic. So basically, this entire story is following the events of the American Revolutionary War in a Civil War era with
Interesting.
like steampunky magic technology. It's a so that's the concept of it, but I guess like a general synopsis would be that there are 4 characters that you're following. Um, we're actually looking at the story of like heroism, purpose, truth seeking, and like belonging and integrity and like who you actually are. Uh, so there's 4 main characters that we follow, and we start from like the unrest period of right before the American Revolutionary War starts off. In this world, the unrest begins, and then we ramp up all the way to the war, and then we experience the war, and then we finally get our happy ending at the end. And so it's a 5 book series, full of magic, full of gas lampy kind of vibes. So I'm hoping it comes.
5 book series. Wow. There's a lot of deep lore there, a lot of adventure, a lot of
Yeah,
high stakes. It sounds really intriguing.
it
It
used to be
reminds
free.
me of a movie, but I can't think of it. It was like this traveling uh, world or like this traveling city. It was very steampunky. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
You know,
Oh, wait, I might have seen trailers of it.
my
Isn't
knowledge of
there?
steampunk stuff is very limited. So it's like I saw a movie once about a steampunk city where they had to survive, and it was a little bit dystopian. If I
Yeah.
come across it, I'll send it to you.
I feel like somebody's listening to this and screaming the name. Maybe something
Yeah,
like Mortal Engines or something like that.
maybe. I couldn't tell you.
But I will say I'm not necessarily full-blown steampunk in knowledge base, but I love to research, and I've researched the crap out of like the American Revolutionary War and 1830s technology and kind of like urban vibes. So I'm mixing colonial era problems with 1850s tech, and it's been interesting. The colonial era has problems because of their lack of technology, so it's hard to kind of like mesh them together. But I've already written book one. I'm just rewriting it right now because I expanded it to 5 books, and I didn't necessarily want to expand it to 5 books, but it ended up just being necessary because of how much happens in the Revolutionary War.
I like
So,
that. Speaking of like the kind of the mashup, and I know this might be not be like an exact comparison, but like Fallout, I really loved how it was like 1950s and then all this futurism, or is futurism a word? A futuristic type of technology. I really,
yeah.
yeah, I love to see those two opposite things like come together in some way.
Yeah, Fallout's a really good example of that, of just that genre mixing once again, which is just so fun. I think it's just a really great challenge.
Yeah, a lot of creativity born from that.
It's true.
So this is a fun question. What was the last book that you read?
Okay, I actually am gonna come at you with this question in a I might diss Matt Dinneman. I am technically reading Dungeon Crawler Carl number 5 right now, The Butcher's Masquerade, but okay, I don't really want to answer this question with that book, is what I'm getting at.
Answer
Because
it however you
that
want.
book,
What is the last book that you
yeah,
read that you loved?
yeah. Well, I mean, I do love this series, but I just kind of feel like his books are candy. They're like a dopamine hit, they're like a
Yeah.
video game. They can't be real literature. This is like so surreal. So, a real book that I have read recently was Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I don't know if you've ever read
I
that.
haven't. I haven't heard of it. I feel like my reading taste is very like I don't really venture off my where
Well,
I'm
what do
at.
you read?
I read a lot of like kind of like paranormal, like urban fantasy horror
Okay.
type of
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Yeah, no, that's cool. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of stuff.
yeah, so I watch that type of stuff. I read like Grady Hendrix. I read some Rachel Harrison, Saratoga Schaefer. Right now, I'm reading "Comfort Me with Apples," and that's kind of a little bit of a different. It's got a horror element to it, but
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I've definitely ventured into that genre a little bit. I am pretty diverse with my reading, but I suppose my main chunk of reading is definitely the fantasy genre. And Priory of the Orange Tree is like your ultimate high fantasy kind of stuff. It's this big, thick book. It's like it's huge,
Oh
but
wow.
it's funny that Brandon Sanderson, his books are smaller than hers,
Hmm.
and he wrote way more words than she wrote in her book. So I think it's like the editing, the typesetting of the book. She just
Exactly.
intentionally made it huge. I don't know, or her publishers did, but it's a very beautiful story. I do have criticisms about the pacing, and maybe character favoritism. Although her main character is to be favorited, she's really badass. But it's a really sweet story. But on the point of being really diverse with my reading, I'm a huge nonfiction reader as well, and so I just barely listened to an audiobook called Wild Rescues by Kevin Grange. He's a wildlife or wilderness paramedic, first responder. So I listened to his just zany. He markets them as extreme adventures, but they weren't really extreme. He was talking about helping a little girl with a broken arm at Yellowstone Boardwalk. So not necessarily extreme, but still really cool to listen to like the paramedic side, the first responding. My best friend is a first responder paramedic, and so like it was really cool to get into her world, and I really love stuff like that. Kevin Fedarko, who wrote A Walk in the Park, he's coming to Utah, and I'm so sad that I'm gonna miss him because I'm going on I'm going camping, but I really wanted to like get him to sign my book. But
Yeah.
I love nonfiction, and I especially love things that get me out into nature, like national parks and stuff like that. So it makes me really want to go camping so bad.
Yeah, I love that answer. I when I got back into reading, I did start with nonfiction, And then once I rediscovered fiction again, I was like, forget this. But I remember reading some nonfiction books and just like really being inspired by them. So maybe that'll be my inspiration to like find a nonfiction book that intrigues me.
Yeah, I would say that some nonfiction books about Utah setting and Utah desert was what propelled my love for to write My Dear Flinchy in general. Because those authors got me out into the setting that I love. I got myself out into the setting that I love, and then it just continued to make me excited about this book. So,
So this is a question that I ask everybody. What
okay.
is something that brings you joy right now?
I love this question. I know you asked this question because of listening to the other podcasts, and I love all of their answers too. And I just like that you ask it because we're in such a turmoily world right now. And all you can do when you can't control what's going on around you is to just focus on what gives you joy. And so right now, my top answer is typically going hiking with my dog. Like that's a given. If you take me out into the outside, like I'm instantly happy. However, I've been getting a lot closer with my boyfriend. We're making like life plans. We're gonna move in together and everything. But something that's been giving me immense joy is just building a life with him and connecting deeper with him. And one thing that we do that has like really lit up our brains recently is I don't know if you've ever heard of these games, but they're like a murder mystery box game that you can buy from a game store. You can bring them home, and they're like physical boxes. They're not video games. They're not. It's like a physical box, and you open it up, and they give you letters and witness statements and police investigations and clues and all kinds of stuff that you have to parse through and you have to read. And in person, you like are a detective and you solve this crime. So we love doing that because we find that we're really smart together. So it's thrilling when you're like, oh, I work in a team with my boyfriend. That's amazing.
I
But we
love
also
that.
love to do those escape rooms. But well, we love to do escape rooms, but we also love to do the card game called Unlock, which is like an escape room but in card game style. So we just really like puzzles and being smart and figuring stuff out, and that brings a lot of joy right now.
Yeah, so you were talking about that game, and I just saw something this morning. A podcast that I love to listen to is the Morbid Podcast, and they just came out with a game called the Salem Slicer, and it is a detective game where you have to like kind of hunt for the serial killer, and I think that's at Walmart right now.
Oh wow!
But I love both of those answers. Both of them are about disconnecting from like technology and outside noise, like going in nature, like just like being present with each other without any distractions. You couldn't have answered that any better. That doing
Yeah,
that same
that's where
thing
the real
brings me
joy is.
exactly,
Yeah.
and especially after COVID, just like being able to recognize what nature offers, like the peace that it offers. I think that made a lot of people appreciate nature so much more.
Oh yeah, it's like my religion. I'm very atheist, but nature would is like my spirituality in particular. So.
Yeah, and I've only ever driven through Utah, but I know it's beautiful. So, I mean, that's a wonderful place to be able to live and be able to hike and go out there.
It's prime real estate, honestly. It's no wonder why everybody's moving here. Please
Yeah,
stop.
right. Let's not talk too highly of it. It kind of sucks, actually.
Yeah, this place is not special. Stay
So, where
away.
can people find you and your book? Like, shout out your social media, and where can they buy your book if they want to read about a magical cow and a treacherous journey?
The best way is to go to my website directly. I have a purchasing portal there for my book. So it's just www.inkcraftpublishing.org. Pretty simple if you can remember our name and then the .org.
And I'll tag everything
Uh,
in the show notes, too, by the way.
yeah, perfect. So that's the best way. You do have to pay shipping, and unfortunately, current events are making shipping really rough on all of us. So I do apologize in advance. If I could fix that, I would. But that is the best way. Although I am also on Amazon. If you're an Amazon girly or guy, um, you can add it to your list, and then people can purchase it as a gift for you if you're interested. I'm also, for anybody who's local, I am going to so many in-person events. this summer. I'm making it a whole thing. I've already sold a great deal of books by being kind of a hustler in that way. Like, so you can find me in person, and if you find me in person, you also get to find really fun merch like bookmarks, stickers, and maps of my world, which are really cool. They're like really nice art prints. So that you get a bonus of merchandise. So if you become a fan of my book, then there are things to be fans over. But my social media is just M.T Christen on Instagram and TikTok, and then Inkcraft Publishing on Instagram and TikTok. We were trying to start a Facebook, but Facebook decided to give us grief.
Yeah,
And I
I don't
didn't care
blame
so
you.
much about Facebook, so I was like, oh, little obstacle, nah, we're good.
And if somebody does want to come check you out at one of your in-person events, do you announce those events just on your social medias, or do you have a
I do.
newsletter?
Yes, I have a newsletter, and I would be so honored if people were to sign up for my newsletter because I do a lot of bonus content and behind the scenes and deleted scenes things. I told a story about launch day. Actually, no, it's coming out on the 15th. I only do one newsletter a month, by the way. I do not spam people's inboxes. I hate that. Otherwise, like I don't sign up for newsletters if I know that they're going to be coming like 1,000 at a time. But I'm telling the story about launch day. We're giving updates on Adam and his publication journey right now, and I'm always updating my event agendas both on social media and on my newsletter. So
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast learning more about your book, and I'm even more excited to go read it now.
oh,
So,
wonderful. Well, I'm really excited to eventually get to learn more about you. You're always asking all the questions, but I hope we get some insight about you.
yeah, so I am going to be on a podcast here in June called Horror, Humor, Hunger
Really?
by Viggy Parhampton. So yeah, I don't have any plans for anybody to interview me on Behind the Bookshelf, but yeah, I'll be doing an
Right,
interview with
right.
Viggy.
No, that's great. I'm there.
Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to keep up with M.T Christen, you can follow her on social media. I'm going to have all of the links in the show notes, and go check out her book, My Dear Flinchy. Stay tuned. Next week, I'm going to be having another author on, Melody Chu, where we're going to be talking about her debut novel, Mathy Girls.